Hello, it's day one, week 2 at COP27, and welcome to the Pioneer the Possible Pavilion. It's not often you get the chance to hear about something that's truly innovative, elegant, and extremely yellow. But today, we've got a fantastic panel that's going to explore a new frontier in renewable energy: clean, safe, reliable ocean energy. My name is Wart. I'm from Stockholm Environment Institute. It's a real pleasure to be moderating today's panel, a panel of real experts. Let me present them to you now. Ambassador Anna Lindstedt, who is the Swedish ambassador for the ocean. We have Dr. Martin Edlund, who is CEO of Minesto. And we have Roland Roesch, who is acting director of IRENA Innovation and Technology Center. I'm going to hand back this fantastic prop to the man who invented it, and he will no doubt present his, well, it's not really a yellow submarine, but it's a pretty amazing yellow kite. But before we get there, I'd like to turn to Roland. Roland, you've been working in this space, ocean energy, renewables, for a long time. I think we actually need a bit of an introduction as to ocean energy and what is it? What are the sorts of potential solutions that it can offer to the world? Roland.
Yes, good morning. Nice to be here. Thanks to the Swedish pavilion to invite us here, on me to speak on behalf of the International Renewable Energy Agency. We are the International Renewable Energy Agency with 164 member countries, most European countries, also Sweden, or all European Union countries are members of IRENA. And we have a mandate to basically support member countries in implementing renewable energy technologies and accelerate the implementation. And we have also a mandate as the Energy Transition Agency. And of course, many of our members globally have long coastlines. We have 380 small island development states in our country, and ocean energy technologies has been important since 2014, because a lot of members contacted us and say, we have this ocean coastline, especially on SIDS. You sometimes have not enough space for solar and wind energy projects. Also, ocean energy technologies have a characteristic which is basically a base load characteristic. So ocean energy technologies can help to integrate higher shares of variable renewables. So if you combine ocean energy technologies with renewable energy technologies onshore, you find a better balance, you can cooperate better, and you can stabilize the energy system. In some cases, this may even help to come to 100% renewables, which is basically what we want to achieve. And I have to say, on the ocean energy technology space, it is different than offshore renewable wind, because this is an established, mature, commercialized technologies. It wasn't the case 10 years ago, but it is now, and we have 42 gigawatts of offshore wind already implemented, and there is high expectations from IRENA to achieve globally 380 gigawatts by 2030 and 2,000 gigawatts by 2050. But with ocean energy technologies, so with tidal, with salinity gradient, with wave energy, but also with ocean thermal conversions, we have technologies of which only tidal is actually currently operated, and it is about 95% of the world ocean energy technology capacity implemented in 2 projects, one in Korea and one in France. And of course, those tidal range and tidal hub projects are very often related to very big infrastructure projects, which kind of brings part of the commercialization. But we see, and this is what is the important thing to say, we have since 2014 worked in the space with patent studies, and at that time ocean energy technologies had a very academic characteristic. But now, since the last 2 years, we see here, as from Minesto, that real technologies developed, which are very close to come into the water and which may reach soon the level of commercialization. In reality, it is not that ocean energy technology is where it ranges. There are some technology, as I said, so the tidal hub, you can probably harvest these renewable energies at $15 per kilowatt, and it may go up in the range for ocean energy technologies up to 40. I think with thermal energy conversion, it can go to $65 per kilowatt. But in this sense, the ocean energy technologies are not yet fully commercial, and they cannot really compete with onshore wind and with offshore wind, with hydropower, and also not with solar. But as I said, they bring a lot of benefits, and to improve the cost position of these ocean energy technologies, a thing that we call sector coupling is important. It is important to bring down the cost of ocean energy technologies by combining these technologies with freshwater production, with desalination, with fishing and fishing activities and other activities you can think of that go on in the sea, also partly in the oil and gas industry. They are using now ocean energy technologies, which will help to make an implementation of these technologies. As said, IRENA believes that we will have about 10 gigawatts globally by 2030. So this would be already very nice to be achieved, because it is such a beneficial technology which goes beyond just looking at the costs of the levelized cost of energies, because it has these benefits in helping to integrate other technologies and can help also to combine in other sectors. Important for me, that's it? Okay.
Roland, it's absolutely fantastic. Before we almost drown in this amazing depth of information, I want to sort of give Dr. Edlund an opportunity to talk about this innovative, elegant and very yellow innovation he has as a particular illustration of the sorts of ocean technologies. And perhaps you'll also, Martin, be able to tell us a little bit about how it meets some of these sort of advantages and benefits that Roland is beginning to sort of set out for us. We're then going to unpack a lot more of the issues around competitiveness and sector coupling as we come along. But Martin, tell us about your wonderful kite.
Thank you, Roland and Robert. And also, I noted that you said before we drowned. You didn't want an intentional joke there, was it? I think it's about time to really clarify the message that technologies that convert kinetic energy in the oceans into renewable, sustainable electricity, they are now available for commercial rollout. We're still in early phases, as Roland said, that there are cost positions that are higher, but we are in smaller scale and we still have some learning curves to climb. But it's also fair to say that there is quite an amount of technology competition going out on here also. We've not reached dominant designs in all those areas, and there are just in our area of tidal and ocean currents, there are more than 100 different projects and companies working on bringing technologies with the right performance and operating performances in place. And we believe from the results we have of our grid-connected machine in the Faroe Islands in the Atlantic that we can offer a technology that will significantly improve the cost position of tidal in-stream generation of electricity. And the reason for that is that we're using a unique principle that can reach into lower flow sites. It's always an advantage when you're working with kinetic energy to have high flows, because there is a square relationship between how much energy that is available related to the speed, same as with wind. But by using the principle that we have, where we can sweep a large cross-section of the ocean by having an underwater plane or a kite attached to the seabed with a tether, then we can have this move in a controlled trajectory of an 8, because it's an advanced control system with rudders on board. So by flying this downstream in the tether, we cover a large cross-section of the ocean and collect the energy from that whole cross-section, and then we take the power on board via a more or less conventional power takeoff system with a turbine, generator, gearbox, and then bring it through the tether to subsea cabling, where we can also benefit now a lot from some of the solutions that offshore wind and floating offshore wind is bringing to the table, with anchoring solutions and with subsea transmission and distribution solutions. And this principle will take us all the way into utilizing ocean currents. They are lower in flow intensity than tidal currents, but they are continuous. So if we look at the cost of energy systems that will take us all the way where we need to be as quickly as possible, we believe that by looking at the cost for the consumers of being a part of a net zero or a 100% renewable energy mix, in many parts of the world, we can lower the cost from generation in such a system by those plannable, predictable injections of electric energy into the grid mix that we offer. So I think that might be enough of an introduction to take us forward. Yeah.
Thanks, Martin. It's a brilliant introduction and really quite inspiring to see the sort of technologies that you've managed to develop here. And linking back, just to be completely clear, Roland, you pointed out that in terms of ocean energy, there is an opportunity to use them to stabilize energy systems because of the predictability. Even if it's low flow, it's that predictability that is sort of a key puzzle piece for many, perhaps small island developing states, for example, in order for them to really have the access to renewable energy that they need. So I think that's a key point to get across here, alongside the innovation and this amazing technology that you've invented. Let me just turn quickly, Roland, before I come back to you. I'd like to bring in Ambassador Lindstedt. Ambassador, earlier this year there was a UN Ocean Conference, so ocean is still quite high on the international agenda. And we've talked for some time about a blue economy, perhaps a sustainable blue economy. I just want to get your perspective on the ocean as a place for solutions to climate change and a place for innovation for sustainability.
Thank you very much. And some of the nerds of these negotiations might know that Sweden has been in the driver's seat to bring in the ocean agenda as an integral part of the negotiating process. And it's now, we had last year in Glasgow a cover decision, and we also have now a yearly dialogue on the nexus between ocean and climate change, and that is a major achievement. Because the ocean is actually a buffer against climate change. And some people might not know that if it hadn't been for the ocean, we would have been much worse. The situation would have been much worse. The ocean absorbs excess heat, 25% of the carbon we emit. But tipping points are close, so we have to be careful. We have to take care of our oceans. And we see a lot of problems: eutrophication, ocean acidification, environmental degradation, overfishing, and so on and so forth. But there is a big potential to tap the unused opportunities of the ocean and the ocean economy. And for mitigation, because to lower emissions, because not just the ocean as such, but also what's in the ocean, mammals, seagrass meadows actually absorb many times more carbon than terrestrial plants. Coastal plants like mangrove, the same. So it's an important potential and opportunity to lower emissions and to sequester carbon, and also to adapt to climate change. Because if we grow these underwater species, if we grow mangrove, we will also build resilience towards the effect of climate change. And the blue economy is growing, but I think we're just in the beginning of it. For food, I mean, we're in a difficult situation worldwide when it comes to food security, food production. We can grow, I think the Secretary General said we can grow 6 times more food using the oceans. And this is an environmentally friendly way of growing food. We don't need fertilizers. It's fairly easy. We don't need a very complicated technology. So there's a big potential there. And not just fish, because we overfish. But if we can have fish farms in a sustainable way, and there's now new technology in Sweden to also take out the sludge from the fish ponds and use it for biogas, and also to convert it into fertilizer and use it on land, so that we close the loop in a circular economy. So there's a big potential there. And of course, in the we had just had a session on shipping, which was very interesting. So that's a big potential there to lower emissions and to have green shipping. But of course, energy. And I think most people think of when you say ocean energy, it's ocean-based wind energy. But this huge and very exciting technology that I mean, it's not new, but I think we're still very much in the beginning of it. And this predictability that is so important to balance the energy system. I've just taken up this position, so I'm very new. I'm not an expert yet, but I see a big potential. And I see there's a community out there working on oceans. In the UN system, we have the UN Decade on Ocean Research and Science. We have conservationists, many big and small organizations out there working. And we have, above all, a very large part of the world's population depending on the ocean for their livelihoods, all over the world, on the islands, but also coastal communities, because 70% of the world is covered by oceans. That's a big area. So, to sum up, a lot of challenges, but also enormous potential. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for that. You bring in 2 aspects that are really important that we might want to revisit. One is the aspect of the ocean ecosystem and how that can coexist with these sorts of technologies. And the other is the very positive, the very necessary requirement for us to provide renewable energy to a very large part, a number of populations that perhaps haven't had that opportunity so far. Roland, I know you're dying to come back in again. IRENA has just launched an innovation outlook on ocean energy. I wonder whether you want to talk us about some of the key aspects of that, bearing in mind that there are 100 at least other companies working in this space. But also I'd love it if you could pick up this point about the sector coupling, which Anna actually mentioned when she talked about fishing and shipping. So over to you, Roland.
Thank you very much. Just want to say a few words also of what Ambassador Lindstedt said. Also, IRENA clearly sees that ocean energy can provide significant socio-economic opportunities to countries with coastal areas, island territory, such as job creation, improved livelihoods, local value change, and enhanced synergies between the blue economy actors. So blue economy is basically very much related to what I mentioned, which brings all these aspects of sector coupling together with all the things that happens on islands, from desalination, freshwater production, fishery, energy production, and also sustainable inter-island traffic. Their ocean energy technologies have also to provide a big opportunity. And I think it's very nice that you ask about our ocean energy technologies outlook. What are the key findings and what can we expect from innovation companies in this sector? It's quite I have written a few comments here of and how we structure this. So what are the key findings from this report? So energy harnessed from the oceans through offshore renewables can contribute to the decarbonization of the power sector and other end user applications relevant for the blue economy, as I mentioned, shipping, cooling, water desalination. Tidal barrage technology still dominates. I've mentioned already this, so 89% of the technologies is this. Interest in ocean energy is global, with Europe as a front runner. Sweden has been mentioned, but there is other countries, also the UK is extremely active. I think what I see, and I've mentioned it, the commercialization of ocean energy technologies is still a little bit difficult because it's not at the cost level and levelized cost that we have in other renewables. And I think cooperation in managing the water basins and how you do, and also the cooperation amongst countries is very important. I think we have seen the European Union now stepping forward in having implemented an objective of supporting 6 gigawatt of ocean energy technologies, which is already amazing. We have seen now in the Nordic a cooperation between the Nordic countries and Germany's on offshore wind, and I think similar cooperations are needed for ocean energy technologies to make sure that this technology finds its way into commercialization. So what do we see? The current, and I've mentioned the levelized cost for tidal is estimated between $20 and 45. And now for these technologies we have here, which is current or wave related, we still have $30 till 55. So this is, while I say a commercialization and a feed-in tariff or something to enable this technology is needed. Unfortunately, the only province or country in the world that has a feed-in tariff for ocean energy technologies to commercialize them is Canada, is the province of Nova Scotia. And I think this is very important that we in Europe, which are the front runner, I would say about 55% of the patents for ocean energy technologies we have in Europe. And let's say from patent to come now to commercialization, some support of this technology is needed. It is also, as I mentioned, there is a lot of benefits which you cannot cover under the levelized cost of energies that this ocean energy technologies brings. The other thing, the big concern for IRENA as the International Renewable Energy Agency, we believe that all renewables have to play an important role if we want to achieve the 1.5 degrees Paris objective. But this will only work if we also get by mid-century, by 2050, to 100 gigawatt of ocean energy technologies because of the characteristics as having this baseload characteristic, but also ocean energy technologies are much better predictable than solar and wind. And because of this characteristic and the potential to integrate with other renewables, we need in many places of the world ocean energy technologies, and that's why it is worth to take efforts to support this technology, to set up research and development, but also help the innovators to get the technologies into the sea and to scale it up and to bring up this technology into the commercial space. And it was already said, I think the basic principles of ocean energy technologies are known. So the people in the world, they know, and there are good books, what are the main principles to harvest the different ocean energy. So thermal, wave, salinity gradient, and also tidal. A little bit of a problem is what was said earlier here. So there are different 300 types of patterns that go in different directions. And what we see as IRENA, if we want to commercialize these technologies, we need to think also to a certain extent in going in a direction of standardization of the different principles, because standardization helps to scale up, standardization helps to bring down the cost. And it is also important if you think, and this is what we see now in offshore wind, in solar and other technologies, there are substantial problems with supply chains. And let's say if everybody develops his own technology with own principles and all kind of parts and technology parts of a technology, we will not match the scaling up also from the side of the supply chains.
Brilliant, Roland. I know you're dying to come in, Martin, because you immediately picked up the microphone when Roland started talking about the cost associated. This is exactly what I'd like you to talk about. Cost, commercialization. We've heard that we want to see 100 gigawatts by 2050. Can you be part of that? How much can you offer? What do you need to be getting to commercial levels?
Well, we need to populate the sites that we are now developing and permitting, starting in the Faroe Islands. And I think it's, now I'm of course a representative of one of those 100 technologies. I'm hopefully biased, I think that's my job. but for us, I'd say that we've really carefully looked into the levelized cost of energy analysis since many years back into this, using the US Department of Energy standards for this. So it's also fully loaded LCOE calculation all the way through landfall and up to grid. And we believe that the first 10 to 20 megawatt arrays will be between 15 and 20 US cents per kilowatt hour, which is about half of what our colleagues in the tidal sector, representing what we then say is more or less first generation solutions, horizontal axis, permanently fixed turbines. And why can we say that? Are we just sloppy or ignorant on how to calculate this, or optimists? I think that there are two extremely important cost drivers in this that is to our advantage. One is that the weight of the system is 10 to 20 times lighter per installed capacity than other solutions. So 1 megawatt for us is around 20 tons. And for the other solutions, it's at least 200 tons. So that, of course, makes it possible to reduce costs of logistics and operations around it, and not the least when it comes to marine operations. If you have to lift things that are heavy or retrieve them from the seabed, you immediately damage your investment calculations and your cost of energies. Our principle is also that we float this one out. So we can use a small workboat instead of a DP vessel. So, and I mean, we're still then in the early phase of and talking about 15 to 20 US cents per kilowatt hour. When we build some scale and push it forward, we have a significant cost reduction in front of us. And even if we're even if we're more pessimistic than for instance with offshore wind, we can say that we believe that we will be more cost effective than offshore wind when we have installed around 200 megawatts capacity, which is then 200 units. So I think that there is still technology competition ongoing, and I hope that we will be able to offer IRENA and other also research-based institutes more evidence on how far we will be able to push this to really make this a part of the toolbox for the 100 renewable energy systems. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Martin, for picking that point up. I actually want to ask a couple of follow-ups, if I may. One is immediately on this point about standardization to help get to scale. Is that something you see as being necessary?
I mean, it's something that we talk a lot about, especially when the politicians ask. They ask for collaborations, and there are research institutes trying to, coordinate supply chains. But I think we are a little bit cocky in that sense, saying that we still believe that there is technology competition ongoing, and we need to have very efficient energy conversion. And we need to adopt the technologies to the environment where the natural resource is. So there will be collaborations, and there will be synergistic effects on anchoring things to the seabed and subsea transformers, hubs, and so forth. But it's really a matter of building scale and getting the real heavy supply chain actors on board. Offshore oil and gas that seriously want to see transition. For us, it could be actors in the aerospace arena that are good at system integration. They start moving now, and that will have a significant impact also on manufacturing and supply chains.
Great, thanks very much, Martin. One last follow-up to you, if I may. We talked about sector coupling. We had some examples on, inter-island transport, which I really liked, and fisheries we've heard as well. Can you tell us about ones that you've got in mind for your technology, and have you got any idea of what the benefits or co-benefits and how they might be quantified?
Yeah, I think Roland mentioned some of the really interesting coupling opportunities here. I mean, desalination to get fresh water. It's also an application where if you know that you will produce a certain amount of water in a certain period of time, you don't need to add storage. You can use your water buffer as storage. You don't need you can use the tidal to generate it. The application or the coupling that we think is one of the growth couplings and where it's going to be most beneficiary, not the least since we are in the Faroe Islands, but also looking into Southeast Asia, is aquaculture of different kinds. We know that today, and this is also coupled to the freshwater situation, because to do aquaculture, fish farming, you do, if it's salmon in the Atlantic, it's 20 months in a tank, 10 months in the ocean. Just 10 years ago, it was the other way around. 10 months in the tank and 20 months in the ocean. So that means just for Faroe Islands, they've doubled their production capacity because the scarce resource is ocean, the right ocean conditions close to shore. But this is also a recycling of water challenge. And now 98%, 99% of the water is recycled. But it takes a lot of pumping biofilters, and it consumes a lot of electricity. So then we can go sustainable direction by preserving water. But if we're fueling this with diesel gensets, we're still in trouble. So there is really a demand and a push from the sector where we are to take it to 100% renewable energy supply. And this is business. It's not just being a good citizen. In the Faroe Islands, they sell the salmon, which is the highest quality in the world, I believe, because of the fresh waters they have. They sell it directly to sashimi restaurants in New York, Manhattan. They stopped flying the salmon there. So they have a new process to cool it down to 0 degrees, to ship it right in, so it has exactly the right, even from Japanese standards, the right quality of the salmon. And they can get a premium for it because they sell it as sustainable salmon. But when the wind is not blowing today in the Faroe Islands, the diesel gensets kick in, and that's a context that they want to quickly get out of. So those are some of the couplings that we immediately see.
Great examples, Martin. My mouth is watering with this in mind. It's hard to put a price on mouth watering, but I want to come to you, Anna, if I may. You have worked quite a lot recently, actually, with the green transition. I wanted to tap into your experience and expertise around this point of scaling innovations, and perhaps also bearing in mind what governments and what policy might do to help get to scale and get to this 100 gigawatt by 2050 that Roland was talking about.
Million-dollar question. Just first one point on the environmental aspects and the sustainability aspects of this, because I mean the weight that the fact that you don't have to put large heavy installations is also very good for ecosystems, and that's part of the reason why you're able, the Faroe Islands are able to sell I mean, if they get energy from this tidal energy, to sell it as sort of totally sustainable. And when it comes to scaling things up, of course, the most important part of any government is to have a global target on whether it's in Sweden or elsewhere, and to create the right conditions. We also need marine spatial planning. Like if we plan a city, that's urban planning is a no-no, and not questions asked. Marine spatial planning, people think, oh, what is this? Sounds weird, but it isn't actually. You have to plan the ocean in the same way as you plan cities and countries. When it comes to scale, I must admit I'm not an energy expert, so I don't want to get into muddy waters. But of course, we need to have systems to support innovation, and that's why I think IRENA comes in as an international body. But of course, at the national level, we need to have provide possibilities for test beds through innovation agencies. At the Nordic level, we have also a Nordic Innovation Agency, we have a Swedish Innovation Agency, we have regional innovation agencies. In the third world, it's a bit more difficult, but then again, IRENA comes in. But just one last point. I want to make some publicity for the event we are having at noon, at 12 o'clock, where we will actually present the case study from the Faroe Islands. Very fascinating. We will also have representatives from the Faroe Islands here. Thank you.
And Anna, you and I will swap places at that point. Or, well, you'll take over as moderator, which is wonderful. Before we wrap things up, I look to the audience here and wonder whether they might have a question about this extraordinary innovation technology, but also getting into the details around cost curves and the like. Any questions from the audience? Just wave your hand and we'll get a mic to you. Yes, please.
Sorry, please, I'd just love to find out what's like the Capex outlay for this ocean energy currently, from what we can see right now, to produce roughly around 250 megawatts of power.
On what scale?
250.
250 megawatts?
Yes.
250 megawatt scale?
Yes.
The first array of underwater park we're planning, we see the total capex, including all infrastructure to shore, not including onshore grid distribution, is somewhere around 1.6 million US per megawatt installed.
Great, thank you, Martin. Great question, Roland.
I think that's exactly the point. No, the capex is still very high because ocean energy technologies requires a lot of infrastructure, and this infrastructure argument is very important. While technologies like this and connecting floating offshore wind, connecting offshore wind projects, and there are huge programs now, especially in the Nordic. And I think to harvest in the best way the resources available in the ocean, it is also necessary to combine with what we already discussed with other sectors, but also combine the opportunities for the energy harvesting. And let's say to have offshore wind, floating offshore wind, and ocean energy technologies combined to also basically balance the infrastructure cost for connecting those technologies will play an important role. And I hope that there is a possibility to do a little bit of more coordination with all these upcoming technology projects. I think that will be 60 gigawatt in the North Sea, and there will be a lot of other projects in the world coming up, huge projects, where there is space also to harvest wave energy and current.
Thank you very much, Roland. Going to give a last word to Martin Edlund from Minesto. Martin, you've been here a bit last week and you're here now. What does the next 12 months hold for you? Where would you like to be by COP28?
We want to have the world's largest underwater array of tidal devices in operation in the Faroe Islands. It's an aggressive goal, but I think it's doable given where we are with the timelines there. I also want to be in full-blown site development in Southeast Asia. And I think this also is a reflection of being here at COP, that if we can combine state aid and support to the parts of the world where we suffer the most from a carbon footprint, but where there is also perhaps not the financial resources to drive that change ourselves, then to invest and support investments in ocean energy and renewable generation is one of the most clever things we can do. Because then we create local value chains that move towards sustainability. And this is what you see when you talk to mining companies, to industrial actors in Indonesia, Philippines. If we can find a way of supporting with the right toolbox of renewables in those areas, that's investments that's going to benefit the local environment and the globe. And actually also from a Swedish perspective then, or the technology provider's perspective. And I also think that since the new government came to Sweden here just a few months ago, that we're combining foreign trade and state aid in the same office is, I think, in the right direction related to this comment.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Roland. When I was asked to moderate this panel, I have to admit I was incredibly ignorant about this type of technology, this area of ocean energy, and I was a bit skeptical. Yeah, drop in the ocean stuff, really, surely. But having listened to you guys, I do think there is huge potential for people who are vulnerable, for creating new value chains, and for establishing clusters of innovators and energy investors. So I'd really like to thank you very much. I'd like to invite the audience to thank you for such a fascinating panel, and to encourage anybody who wants to know more about a specific project to come back at 12 o'clock and hear from Martin and Anna about their project in the Faroe Islands. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Roland, thank you very much. Pleasure having you.